The news broke just after midnight in London. Jamie Dornan had just wrapped a long day of filming when his phone began to vibrate relentlessly, messages, calls, and alerts flooding in faster than he could process. He ignored the first few, assuming it was another tabloid headline or fan rumor. But then his assistant called, her voice trembling. "Jamie, it's Dakota. She's been in an accident." Everything stopped. He didn't ask questions at first, he couldn't. His mind froze, the words echoing in his ears like distant thunder. Dakota, accident, hospital, Los Angeles. That was all he caught before his body moved on instinct, pacing the room as his chest tightened. "How bad is it?" he asked finally, his voice breaking. But there was no clear answer. Only uncertainty. Within hours, every news outlet had picked it up. Dakota Johnson hospitalized after on-set accident in Los Angeles. Details were scarce, but early reports said it had happened during a stunt sequence gone wrong. The world held its breath, and so did Jamie. For the next few hours, he couldn't sleep. He sat in silence, replaying memories, her laughter between takes, the way she'd tease him when he forgot his lines, that fearless confidence she carried into every scene. To the rest of the world, Dakota Johnson was a Hollywood star. But to Jamie, she was something more, a piece of his past, a chapter he could never close. When his wife, Amelia, came downstairs, she found him sitting alone, his face buried in his hands. "You've heard," she said gently. He nodded without looking up. She didn't need to ask what he was thinking. She knew. It had been years since 50 Shades, years since he and Dakota last stood together under the glare of a film set. But that bond, forged through shared vulnerability and trust, had never faded. They had gone through something few people could ever understand, the pressure, the scrutiny, the intimacy of portraying a love story that blurred the line between fiction and reality. And though time had moved on, that connection had stayed. When the interviewer once asked him if he still kept in touch with Dakota, Jamie had smiled and said, "Some people never really leave your life. They just live quietly in your memories." Now, in the middle of the night, those memories didn't feel quiet at all. They screamed. A friend later said he had never seen Jamie like that before. He wasn't angry or panicked, the friend recalled. He was just broken. You could see it in his eyes. He kept saying, "I should have called her. I should have checked in." By morning, the paparazzi had surrounded Jamie's London home, waiting for a reaction. Reporters shouted questions. "Jamie, have you spoken to Dakota? Will you fly to Los Angeles?" He didn't answer. He just got into his car, eyes hidden behind dark glasses, jaw clenched tight. Inside the car, the silence was deafening. Every image of Dakota he'd ever seen, every interview, every red carpet moment, played like a film reel in his mind. He remembered her courage, her kindness, and the way she'd always pushed him to be braver, softer, more real. "Don't act," she used to say before difficult scenes. "Just be." Now, the thought of her hurt, vulnerable, possibly fighting for her life, was unbearable. When news broke that Dakota had undergone emergency treatment, fans flooded social media with prayers and messages of support. Hashtags like #StayStrongDakota and #JamieForDakota trended worldwide. The internet, for once, seemed united in heartbreak. A source close to Jamie told People, "He hasn't stopped checking his phone. He's been calling anyone he knows in LA, trying to get updates. He's devastated." Another insider added, "Dakota has always been special to him. The thought of losing her, it shattered him." Later that afternoon, Jamie was spotted alone near Heathrow Airport, a small travel bag slung over his shoulder. He didn't speak to reporters, but someone overheard him whispering into his phone, "I can't just stay here. I need to see her." As the plane took off, he stared out the window in silence, the city lights fading below him. Somewhere across the ocean, in a sterile hospital room, lay the woman who had once shared his every heartbeat on screen. The woman who taught him how to trust and to feel again through their work. For the world, it was news, another Hollywood tragedy, another headline. But for Jamie, it was something far more personal. It was the terrifying reminder that life is fragile, that the people we think will always be there can disappear in an instant. One of his close friends later said, "He kept saying the same thing over and over. I don't care about the past. I just need her to be okay." And somewhere over the Atlantic, as dawn broke through the clouds, Jamie Dornan closed his eyes for the first time in 24 hours. Not to rest, but to pray. The flight from London to Los Angeles felt endless. Jamie Dornan sat in silence, his mind racing faster than the jet that carried him across the Atlantic. Every minute that passed without news felt heavier, crueler. He wasn't an actor in that moment. He wasn't a husband or a father. He was just a man terrified of losing someone who had once meant more to him than words could explain. When the plane finally landed, he didn't wait for luggage. He moved quickly through the terminal, his phone clutched tightly in his hand. A message finally came through from Dakota's publicist. "She's stable. Still under observation, but conscious." Jamie froze mid-step, closing his eyes in relief. The world around him blurred. He exhaled, long and trembling, as if his lungs had been holding that breath for hours. Outside the hospital, reporters swarmed the entrance. Cameras flashed, questions were shouted, but Jamie ignored them all. Dressed simply in a dark hoodie and jeans, he looked nothing like the Hollywood star they were used to photographing. There were no smiles, no waves, just worry etched into every line of his face. Inside, the sterile hallways felt surreal. Nurses whispered, recognizing him instantly, but no one stopped him. "Room 314, a voice said softly, and he walked there like a man half awake. When he reached her door, he hesitated. For a long moment, he couldn't move. What if she was still in pain? What if seeing him only reminded her of the past, of all the years between them that neither had spoken about? But then he heard her laugh, faint and raspy, from inside the room. It was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. He stepped in quietly. Dakota was sitting up, pale but smiling, a soft cast on her arm and small bruises on her temple. She looked up, her expression changing from surprise to disbelief. "Jamie?" He nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "Hey, you scared the hell out of me." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of years seemed to dissolve between them, replaced by something simpler, relief. She reached out her uninjured hand, and he took it, squeezing gently. His eyes filled with tears he didn't bother to hide. "You came all the way here?" she asked, her voice weak but teasing. He smiled through the tears. "You think I'd stay home after hearing that? Not a chance." Dakota's eyes softened. "It wasn't that bad," she said. "A stunt went wrong, that's all. Everyone's overreacting." "Everyone," Jamie said quietly, "except me." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full of things left unsaid, of memories that still lingered between them. Jamie pulled up a chair and sat beside her, still holding her hand. For the first time in years, they weren't actors or co-stars. They were just two people who had shared something rare and unspoken, a connection that time, distance, and circumstance had never erased. Later, a nurse entered and told Dakota she needed to rest. Jamie nodded, standing up slowly. "I'll go," he said. But before he could step away, Dakota whispered, "Stay. Just a little longer." He did. Hours passed quietly as he sat by her bedside, watching her drift in and out of sleep. At one point, she murmured something half asleep. "We always said we'd take care of each other, right?" Jamie smiled sadly. "Always." By morning, Dakota was stable enough to be discharged. The press outside had grown even louder. Photos of Jamie entering the hospital had already gone viral. "Jamie Dornan rushes to Dakota's side after tragic accident," the headlines read. Fans flooded social media with messages like, "This is love," and "Christian and Anna forever." But for Jamie, none of that mattered. Before leaving, he walked her to the car waiting out back to take her home. The city was waking up, sunlight spilling across the pavement. Dakota looked up at him, her voice soft. "You didn't have to come all this way." "Yes, I did," he said simply. "You matter to me. You always have." She smiled faintly, eyes glistening. You're going to make me cry again. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. Then we're even. They stood there for a long moment, neither wanting to say goodbye. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you for being here." Jamie nodded, his throat tightening. "Thank you for being okay." As the car pulled away, he watched her disappear into the morning light, his heart heavy but at peace. He knew this wasn't about rekindling old feelings or rewriting history. It was about something purer. The kind of care that never fades, no matter how much time passes. That night, back at his hotel, Jamie posted a simple message to his fans on Instagram. "Life is fragile. Cherish the ones who made you who you are. No names, no explanations, just truth." Within minutes, Dakota liked the post. And in that quiet digital moment, between two people separated by years but still bound by something unspoken, the world was reminded that sometimes, love doesn't need labels, or promises, or even words. Sometimes, it just needs to show up.